Okay, we are live again, and I hope that our audio is better. Please comment and let us know if it's better. Okay, can anybody tell us that our audio is better? We are wired now. We've got a microphone right here, loud and clear. All right, thank you.
Good.
Okay, so I asked you what were the 3 biggest stressors, and you started with staff, and then can you elaborate on that?
Staff. I mean, either with handling day-to-day issues with staff, or turnover with staff, or staff issues. Issues with each other. Summertime, just most recently, figuring out how to handle vacations and bring in temps and cut back schedules and all that kind of stuff. That is something that I always struggle with, because I always try to give my staff the time off that they request, sometimes at the expense of the practice, because I feel like I try to treat them more like family than staff. So, but sometimes that's hurtful. That hurts me, because I end up holding that frustration.
Yeah, I think I have a hard time with staff because I want to be liked,
Yeah.
and the same thing, I treat them like friends sometimes, and I think the problem is most of my staff isn't afraid of me,
Right.
and I think there's that fine balance to where they need to respect you,
Yeah.
but they need to like you, and that is such a hard balance to do.
And when it comes down to it, I usually will always err on the side of having them like me than
Yeah.
being the mean boss.
Right.
So
Yeah, because I think that there's such a fine balance, but if they like you, they're more willing to help you.
right.
You know, if they think that you're
Yeah.
an a-hole, then they're going to say, well, screw him.
And that's what I've always thought, is I feel like people that like you and respect you because of how you treat them are more apt to do the things you ask when you ask things of them,
Yeah.
and want to do it because they care about you, they care about the practice, they care about the patients, rather than being like, mafioso boss and like putting hits out on staff. That's never been my style. So,
Yeah. Okay, so staff was number 1.
yeah.
What's next?
Finances, definitely. I mean, it's like, especially just recently going through COVID stuff, day-to-day not so much now in the past 5 years, but finances has always been weighed heavily on me. It burdens me when I have to check my bank account multiple times a day. That kind of thing it's not healthy.
And it's crazy to hear that, because everybody thinks dentists are rich, right? I mean, all your friends probably think you're rich.
Right. Yeah.
All my friends think I'm rich. Oh, you're a dentist, you're rich. And I think what people don't understand is that you can have a successful practice, you can be well known, you can have your patients love you, you could have a wait list. That doesn't mean that you're not highly leveraged.
Right.
You went to, at the time, the most expensive school in the world. Then I went to, at the time, the most expensive school in the world. Different schools, by
Yeah.
the way. And, we came out with a lot of debt.
Yeah.
And then, you get married, or you buy a house, or you start practice. You started practice from scratch.
Right.
I bought a practice.
Yeah.
And you start with this big cloud above your head.
Right.
And even if you make a lot of money, that doesn't mean that you're bringing it home.
Right. It's all going to something that you're leveraged against. There's that, you may be bringing in a lot of money, but you've got so much debt that you have to try to pay down before you actually start being able to look at saving or building or investing and all that kind of stuff to try to plan for your future, which feel like it comes later and later and later now in life with
Right.
the way dentistry is. So
Yeah, I would have thought by my age, and I'm 30, how old am I? 37? 38? 38. Wait, am I 38? 37? Oh yeah, 37, sorry. Okay, being 37, that I would have been like so established
Right.
and not have to worry about money, and
that
that's
was
just-
one of the
it's
hardest
just not the
things.
case.
Hardest things for me coming out of school, right? So you come out of school with all this debt from going into school, and then you're like, I want the next thing. I want, a practice and a home, and so then you add those two giant things onto your student debt. So now you've tripled your student debt at least, if not more. And then that frustration of, I feel like I'm at this point in my life, I see other people that have this and this and this. I feel like I should have that. And
Yeah.
the biggest thing for me that was so hard the first 5 to 8 years of when I was practicing was patience of just be happy where you are. Be happy that you have a healthy family, that you've been able to get into a home, that you have started a practice, although it was in 2008, right when the recession hit, and it was terrible, and had nightmares of doing kind of crazy things to myself. And
Good timing of when to start a practice, right?
right, yeah. That was the most stressful time in my life. Was a year or two into my startup practice when nobody was coming in. So
Yeah, so because the background on his practice was he started a practice that right before the crash was like, and correct me if I'm wrong, was like, this area is growing like crazy. We're
Right.
building 1,000 houses here and, you know,
Yeah.
10,000 houses here. And they were.
yes,
And so you're like, great
Start the
place,
practice,
start
it's
it
a great
here, it's
spot,
going to grow.
Yeah,
And then crash.
right.
And you built a big practice.
Yep, 7 operatories. Yeah, luckily I was smart enough to not equip all of those operatories. That's
Right.
one thing I've been so thankful for was, both my contractor and my equipment guy who helped me start that up. Were like, put in 2 operatories and build as you grow. And within 8 to 10 years, I was able to fill all my operatories. But I know guys who started at that same time, put in all the equipment, all the bells and whistles, and within a year and a half, the bank owned their practice. So,
Yeah. So that's interesting that your most stressful time was like a year out, to where mine
it wasn't.
most-
It wasn't a year. It was a year into owning my practice. A year
Okay,
or two
so-
into owning my practice.
so
That
how
was
far out
about
was
5
it?
years out.
Okay.
That was about 5 years
Yeah,
out.
so I find that after talking with people, most people's biggest stress is 5 to 15 years out. I know that's a very big range, but mine was about 7 years out. I think it's when our age gets to a certain point. People are at a certain age where they have the extra stresses of kids, spouses, practice ownership, expectations,
Right.
and everything kind of compounds.
Yeah, it's all piled on at that time, and you may be doing really well, but you just feel that pressure of all those burdens. You have all those things that you have to meet on a monthly basis and redo that over and over and over and over, and fill that schedule again, and just pray that you've done the right stuff to build your practice in the right way, so those people come back to you and grow your practice if it's a startup or something like that. And that's, I think, the hardest thing is knowing, just feeling that burden on a regular basis of, I have to go back and do this. I can't choose to take a couple days off or take a week off to spend with my family, or I feel like I have to choose to work, because if I don't work, it's going to hurt my family, rather than go and spend time with my family, which was probably actually going to be better for your family.
Yeah, that is a really great point. And I think that's something that most of us struggle with, and most of the people that I talk to that have kind of a mental breakdown like I had, is you're having this this like devil and angel on your shoulder. You say, I need to make money to support my family.
The only way we can be happy is if I can pay for the things that we need.
Right. And when in reality, the more important part is your family,
Yep.
being there,
Yep.
right? And
Yeah.
and we think by working we're being there for them, which we are. We have to
Right.
support them in
Yeah.
some way. But oftentimes, like my wife told me when I was out lecturing, and I would say, I'm going to get paid really well. She'd say, I don't care how much you make. I want you here.
Right.
And that was a really big eye opener for me.
Yeah, that's a hard lesson to learn, because you feel like you get that reward, you get your value from providing.
Right. Yeah.
But your family probably doesn't feel like that. They know that you're bringing things to the home or the family, and you're bringing food on the table, and they have clothes to wear, and they can go to school and do all these things. But they might just want more time with you, and a closer relationship with you, as opposed to more things. And that's a huge mistake that I made.
And I think that young people in general make that mistake.
Yeah.
And I've been reading a lot about what people that are like on their deathbed, what they say, and so many times it's don't chase things, chase relationships, put relationships first. And there's studies done that actually show that if you have better relationships, you actually live longer. Over smoking or drinking or exercise or diet, having best relationships,
connections with people. Yeah.
So maybe less connections and more in-depth connections and relationships with people makes you live longer.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a hard thing. I know Dr. Kyle has a lot of flight mileage. Yes, I do. Well, not recently. Okay, so you talked about staff, you talked about finances, and what would be number 3 for you?
Number 3. What did I say before?
I think you said patience.
Oh,
with patients.
Yeah. Initially, really was hard for me dealing with patient concerns or complaints. I took them really personally. I felt like I had to be perfect. That if my work wasn't perfect and didn't last forever, that it was my fault. Even if I know that they didn't brush but a couple times a week and never flossed, I still felt like my crown or my inlay or onlay or filling should last forever. And I'd come in and say, well, you did this. As soon as I hear you did this and then something's wrong, that anger would start to build within me to get defensive instead of, oh, that's the problem? Let's just look how to fix it. And I would take it as a personal attack instead of separating myself from the problem that is happening in their mouth that may or may not be my fault. And if it was, I'll accept it and I'll fix it. And if it's not, then we'll still fix it, but they may have to pay to redo it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think for me, it was an ego thing, right? I thought I was the best dentist. And someone always said, have you ever asked a dentist how good they are? And they say, oh, I'm terrible. Very rarely. I mean, sometimes. But most people, every dentist thinks they're a good dentist.
Yeah.
Which is scary, right? Because we know on a bell curve, not everybody can be good.
Yeah.
I thought I was good, and then I would do something and say, gosh, well, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. Or, did I waste all this time and money on education when maybe this isn't what's best for me?
Right. Yeah.
And that was just such a blast to my ego.
I think the hard part for me is knowing that I always felt like I did my best and cared. I knew I probably would never say that I felt like I was the best dentist, but I've seen other dentists and other dentists work, so I know I'm not bad.
You're not the worst, right?
I know I'm not bad,
Yeah.
but it's that feeling that when you do it and you think you care, But what I've learned is those other dentists, if you see work that comes in you think is below what it should be, you haven't worked on that patient in their mouth under that experience, and then you see something that isn't up to par, you go back and try to redo it and fix it, and you look at it, and the same thing happens again, the same open margin or the same whatever, and you're like, now I know what that guy or gal was going through because I was there and I got the same result that they did. It's not their fault. It's a challenging tooth. It's a challenging patient. It's whatever.
Yep.
It's a combination of factors.
I've had that so many times where I was easy to judge.
Yep.
And then I worked on the patient and was like, oh my gosh, they have this massive tongue.
Right.
Or, they open like this. Or saliva's everywhere or something like this. So
Yeah.
that was also kind of an ego thing too. I thought, I was the best here and everybody was below me. And so if anybody did anything that had any problems, I'm the one that's going to fix it.
Right.
And especially, I always took pride in the patients that came in with like a folder of stuff and written down. And I was like, I've been to 5 dentists. They all tried to do this. They couldn't do it. And someone said, you're the expert. So you're going to do it. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to fix it. And those are the cases where I think I got myself in trouble.
Yeah.
With stress and having to give back money or whatever it is.
Right.
Because I came in with this big ego instead of being like, well, maybe there's a reason why this happened. I can try again, but the same thing may happen. And just being honest with the patients, not trying to sell them on anything.
Right. I think luckily I'm to the point where I've had enough experiences to know that if somebody comes in like that, it makes me very wary.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I won't treat them.
Right.
But I go in with the understanding of I'm gonna bring their expectation down.
Yep.
So that they don't think I can change their world and fix all of their problems.
Yeah.
Because if you oversell and underdeliver, you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
If you say we're going to do our best and make it, and then it turns out better than what they've had or what they think,
Great, yeah.
you're in a great spot because you've done some good. You've changed an experience that they've had in the dental world, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah, that's one thing that I say with deliveries or seats.
Mm-hmm.
So like in our practice, I always try to tell our staff that we don't do seats, we don't do deliveries. Everything is a try-in.
Yeah.
Because we may not be giving it to the patient. And if the patient expects to get it that day,
Right.
they may have a wedding planned or a speech, or they're gonna see their kids or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just a simple crown
Mm-hmm.
and it's in the posterior, I always tell them, next time you come in, we're gonna try this in. If everything fits and looks good that day, you'll leave with it. But sometimes we have to make some adjustments, we have to send it back to the lab, we have to change
Right.
the color, and I really want it to be great for you.
Mhm.
So sometimes it can take 2 or 3 tries for us to really get it nicely.
Yeah.
Now, 80-90% of the time, we get on the first try.
Right.
But there's those times, and I learned this the hard way, that I said, next time you come in,
Right.
you're getting your crown, or you're getting your implant crown, or your denture, or whatever it is, and something happens. And so I tried to set that expectation low, and that was a hard thing to learn.
That's one of the biggest things, learning how to, having enough experience and learning from your own mistakes and your successes on how to speak to patients about every situation. I almost feel at this point that I've seen everything. There are still always things that come up. I had a crazy one the past couple of weeks, but then when they happen, I'll sit there and I'll look at my staff and I thought I've seen everything, and now I don't. Now I haven't, but most of the stuff, the majority of things that I come into contact with now, I can explain to the patients what to expect before and after and during in a comfortable way where I feel confident doing that, and it instills confidence in them that they know what's going to happen, and they know the steps of the procedure and what's going to happen during those steps. Now, whether or not they actually comprehend that is a tougher part sometimes, depending on their how much they know about dentistry and their experience in dentistry and that kind of stuff. But I feel like I have that experience where I can walk into a room and be able to explain something to a patient.
And that's hard for young dentists because they don't have that experience.
You don't get that in dental school.
And so oftentimes, at least with me, I was overconfident, overselling even.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think I was selling them because I was very confident in this.
Right.
I said this is going to work. This is
You
going
want
to
it
last
to work.
forever.
You think it's going to work. Yeah.
And so then I built them up even more that I came that much farther down.
Yeah.
And that was
that's hard.
That was a hard thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talked about staff, finances, and patience.
Yep.
In that order. Number 1, number 2, number 3?
Probably over the life of my practice, yes.
Okay. Of course, it changes.
Yeah,
at times.
it changes at certain times, but yeah. Overall, I think that's probably the
Interesting
right
with me. I have had big staff problems, but I wouldn't say it's number 1. I would say for me, number 1 is dealing with patients.
Yeah.
Number 2 is probably finances, and number 3 is staff. Still top 3, but those are my orders. Of course, I've had bad staff problems. Of course, I've had bad financial problems.
Yeah.
And they've changed, but those are probably the three biggest ones for me.
Yep.
We already talked about at what age your highest stress was.
So far. Hopefully it doesn't get any higher than it's been.
Yeah. Well, there is some studies that show that. Let me see if I can bring this up to remind myself about this. But stress for dentists usually is like an inverse. It's like an inverse bell curve kind of. So it's actually this way they say it. You come in really high. No, wait, it's the opposite way. In the middle of your career is usually when it's the hardest.
Yeah.
No, wait, sorry. I said that incorrectly. Let me bring this up so I'm reminded of it. And no, I made a graph of it. It's the opposite. It is towards the end and at the beginning. Usually in the middle, you're okay because I think you have the experience.
Right.
You're more financially stable.
Right.
you've learned from your mistakes. Now then, why do you get more stress at the end? And I think we realize this with Dad, is that you're starting to realize that it's coming to an end.
Yeah.
And you're starting to think of, what am I going to do?
This is the only thing I've done for the past however long you've been doing it.
Yeah. And so we talked about that with my last one with my dad, so go back and watch that if you haven't seen it.
Big change in your income.
Big change in your income, yeah.
That stress of, have I put enough aside? Have I made the right investments? Have I done the things that I wanted to or thought that I should have in those past 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years that you can't go back and change at that point.
Right.
I think that is stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, so that makes sense on the timing of everything.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think dental school training is missing?
I think at least when I was there 15 years ago now, 15 to 20 years ago, if you put when I started, I think one of the hardest things is that the instructors that are there instructing clinically are usually at the end or done with their careers.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have new students with new technology and new materials and all of those things happening, and you want to use the newest and best and greatest things when you may not have faculty that's on board with the newest and best and greatest things.
Mm-hmm.
So they come in with tons of experience in how to do all kinds of things, but maybe not with the materials or the procedures that you're necessarily going to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that definitely could change in dental school. The hard part is getting younger dentists to go and teach at schools.
Yeah, because they don't want to pay anybody.
Right. They're looking.
That's the problem. I don't get universities, and I taught at a university for 9 years. Is they don't want to pay anybody, and they want everybody to work for free. And it's like, oh, well, we trained you, so like you should come back and give back to us. Like, I paid you $400,000. Yeah, I paid you $400,000. You didn't do it as out of the goodness of your heart.
No, it wasn't a service program.
Yeah. So I did go back and I taught for free for 9 years, but finally I had to quit because they kept asking for more and more and more, and they wouldn't even give me like a quarter of what I would make in my practice. Nothing. They wouldn't even pay for my parking. It was wild. And finally I was like, this is BS. You won't even pay for my parking? Crazy. And that is a hard thing with universities, that oftentimes they have some of the best lecturers, which are great at the materials, great at the technology, that kind of stuff. But oftentimes those people don't have the private practice experience.
Right.
So they may be really, really amazing at the research aspect of it. And don't get me wrong, because I'm a researcher, but you have to have a balance. I think having someone who knows how a private practice works and who did it in the last 20 years or 10 years is important.
Yeah. And
with the current financial situation or the current regulations, that's totally different.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things. That would have been great to have, to not get blasted straight into the past of dentistry almost.
Right.
Like you learn about all these things, but in the past you're only doing amalgam fillings where
gold.
And gold, and which
full denture,
which patients don't want, and I've never done an amalgam filling in my practice. I've been open 12 years, so it was a challenge making that transition to learning new materials and how to use them and that kind of stuff.
And what do you think about like business training or mental health or anything like that?
Those are both super lacking, and I used to think, everybody would say, "Oh, your dad's a dentist. Do you know that dentists are the highest person to have suicide?" I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I love my dad and he's happy, and I see him at home, and I don't know anything different, and never thought that was an issue. And I'd be like, you're crazy. Why are you talking about this? But then you start to do it or talk to people that have been through that. The stress and the mental health part of it definitely needs to be addressed in the dental school, I think, and the practice management side of it too. You can't. I don't know anyone that can come out of dental school and run a
Run a
practice
practice.
unless they're seeking education outside of dental school on their own.
Right.
They don't make time for it because there's so many things to learn. You can't learn everything in 2.5 years in a clinic.
Yeah. Yeah, I always thought about that. Should dental school be longer? Should we take 2 years
Now
off
that I'm
of
done,
college?
yes. Now that I'm done, it should be
Right,
longer.
yeah. Should we take 2 years off of college and go,
Kind of more of the
6 years
international model.
international way?
Yeah.
I think the negative part of the international way is that they don't get to grow up a little bit and they graduate too early, which is why so many of my friends, like in Brazil, everybody does a master's, everybody does a PhD, everybody does a specialty because, you're 22 and you're a dentist.
Yeah.
But I think there's something good about going to college because you get to grow up a little bit, you get to experience being away from your parents, you get to learn, college to me is about learning how to do your laundry, learning how to be away from your parents, being an adult kind of thing.
Adult, yeah.
But I wonder if maybe the last 2 years or the last 2 years or something of dental school has business and stress reduction kind of advice somewhere.
Yeah.
Because for us, we had a practice management course at the end of school. It was the last semester. So what's everybody doing the last semester?
Looking for a
Trying
job.
to finish, looking for a job,
Yeah.
moving back,
Yeah.
right? Oh my gosh, I gotta finish. I've got 2 more quads
You're
I have
thinking
to
about
do.
the next step in life. You're not thinking
Yes.
about. Yeah.
And so most people didn't even show up in ours. Me and my friend Matt were in the front row, but still, what can you learn in a semester?
Yeah.
And so I think that is definitely missing. And I think the mental health, why I'm talking about this now is because we didn't get it. I had a student that committed suicide. UCLA had a student that committed suicide. They actually formed kind of a mental health group for people and invited me to come speak. So it's cool to hear that schools are doing that, but
Yeah.
it's bad to hear that they don't do it until someone kills themselves.
Right. Yeah, change will always happen when that issue comes to the forefront, right?
Yeah.
In specific locations, especially something like that. But it would be nice to see that carry over to, worldwide or in the United States, a nationwide kind of education platform where they realize that this is an issue that needs to be discussed because it's harming the students that are leaving dental schools because they don't have the ability to understand and deal with these things and the outlet of how to make it better.
Yeah.
Having finding a place where you can go and talk freely about not feeling comfortable, having thoughts of harming yourself or questioning whether or not you want to keep doing dentistry if that's what you're feeling. Like those are things that people feel, I think, a lot of shame about because you're so invested at that point.
Right.
You're like, what the heck do I do? I'm stuck. I don't have a choice at this point.
So one of my friends who's a foot and ankle surgeon, I was talking with him last week, and he said that in the medical community they call it the golden handcuffs. So the golden handcuffs are, you make pretty good money, you're well respected,
Yep.
you have been doing this forever, you have so much debt that you can't leave.
You're just stuck.
You're stuck, and your whole thing is like, I just have to do this until I can retire.
Right.
And that may not be the best thing for you. In dentistry, there's a ton of options.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a clinical dentist if this is causing you so much stress that you can't sleep or you can't eat or you're having suicidal thoughts, that you can be a consultant, or you can work for insurance companies, or you can work for tech companies, or you can work for dental companies. You can still use your dental training and you don't have to do clinical dentistry.
Right.
And that is, I think, where so many people feel. I kind of felt something like that.
Yeah.
Golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
And the golden handcuffs, you get that response when you talk to non-dentists, right? So when you bring it up to non-dentists, they say, well, you have a great family and you have a nice house and you have a great practice, you're well respected. Look, you're a doctor. What do you have to worry about?
Right.
But then you go and talk to another dentist and they say, I immediately get it.
Right.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I had a patient just like that. My loans are just like that. I had a failure just like that. My implant fell out just like that. And having people that you can talk to is so important that have gone through the same thing. And that was why I wanted to do this, was to just say, maybe there's someone on here that is like, hey, did you see that thing that Kyle did? And share it, talk to each other. and make this so that it's not a taboo subject. You can
Right.
say, I'm going through a really hard time right now.
Right. We've got no problem going out and learning about a new procedure or a new material or
Right.
a new piece of equipment and paying for that education and learning about that education, but we're very hesitant to learn about ourselves and our
Make ourselves
failures
better, yeah.
and make ourselves better and get out there and discuss like what's gone wrong in our life or in our practice, how we're struggling financially. Those aren't fun things to talk about, but if you can find a group of people like that, it's so freeing to be able to just be yourself and talk with them freely, and know that they're going to accept you no matter what you say. That makes a huge difference, I think, in how you feel about yourself, which will only improve, I think, your dentistry.
I was literally just going to say that. I was waiting for you to stop speaking so I could say that. Was when I went through my hard time, I thought my dentistry was very good. As soon as I could understand that, and I basically hit rock bottom, my dentistry got better. It allowed me to then focus on the clinical part because my mental health was a lot better.
Yeah.
And had I went and just been taking more courses about doing better crowns, doing better implants, doing better this,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think my dentistry would have got better. But once because I always say this, like, if you are stressed, you can't sleep, you can't eat, you're suicidal, you're not going to learn how to do a better crown. You're not going to place a better
Right.
implant.
You're not gonna be
You're
able
not
to-
going to do a better graft.
Not gonna be able to do it in the moment either,
No.
because you're just thinking about
Because
other
you're thinking
things,
about
you're
other
struggling
things.
with all these other things, and
Mhm.
you can't be there in the moment to focus on what you have to do that day. And that's where you make mistakes.
Yep.
That's where you hear people pulling out the wrong tooth or working on the wrong tooth, and,
Yep.
and that's when those things happen. Is when you're just so distracted because of all the stress and mental health issues. I think that it manifests itself in someone's mouth, and that's where it can become a big problem for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so do you have any tips to reduce stress? Or maybe not tips to reduce stress, but like Dad talked about some tips that that he does with patients that helps him talk with patients or deal with patients. I know you said that you actually do a lot of those without Dad even telling you that.
Yeah, it was funny when I was listening to Dad do his talk with you. I was like, oh my gosh, I do all those things that he does, and he never explained those things to me. But I'm very much like him in many ways, and which is fantastic. And I've done so many of those things. How I talk to patients and how I explain things. Those things are always helpful to reduce my stress. I think feeling organized helps me to reduce stress
Mhm.
within my day. If I come in and the day is a mess, the schedule falls apart, or there's crowns not there that's supposed to be delivered, or we don't have parts and pieces for an implant, that gives me a high amount of stress because I feel like it's going to make me look like a failure.
Yeah.
So making sure I'm organized helps me to reduce stress. Recently, I've been doing some more meditation and things to kind of just realize that I'm doing my best and I'm okay with what I can do and at peace with myself. That kind of has helped me to reduce stress.
A lot of research around that, around meditation and prayer and taking time throughout the day. When I had a friend tell me about meditation a long time ago, probably 5 years ago, and I was like, hippie stuff, right? And he said like, no, like there's a lot of research around it, and he's a very smart person, so I respected him. And you go and look in the research, and it's true. There's like good scientific research about meditation and how it can make you healthier mentally and physically. You can physically be healthier by
Changing your mental state.
Yes, and there's some studies. I think I have some here. Where is it? It's good that you brought that up.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned in listening to the meditation that I've been doing recently is separating yourself from thoughts or concerns. not getting stuck on stuff. I used to get stuck on stuff where I just obsess about it. It would be there, and learning to just kind of have that thought and just kind of let it walk on by. And it's okay to have a thought. It's okay to think about something good or bad, but when you obsess on it, then it becomes a problem. If you just kind of have the thought and you let it go and realize it's just a part of life and that's what's going on, then you don't obsess on it and get stuck in a rut. And that's something that's helped me a lot recently.
How long have you been meditating?
It's been in the past 3 to 4 months only.
Do you feel like you've gotten better at it?
It's hard at first, yeah.
Yeah,
it was hard at first.
A lot of people tell me that when they first start, they're like, this
Failing
isn't
at
gonna
meditating.
work. Like I'm just
Yeah.
thinking about all this stuff while I'm sitting here.
Right.
But it's interesting how it's like anything. It's a skill.
You have to practice.
And you practice and you get better at it and you get more of the results. So this is a study that talks about after 8 weeks of meditation, the gray matter actually got bigger on people's brains. And the gray matter is for learning, memory, and emotional regulation. So emotional regulation is so important for us dentists. And after 8 weeks of meditation, the amygdala actually got smaller. And that area is for stress, blood pressure, and fear. So you'll have less stress, less fear, your blood pressure will be better just by meditating. So that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Someone said enough omega-3s help to reduce stress and depression. Yeah. Great.
Diet, making sure you're eating healthy is also a big thing, right? You get stressed, you're like, I just need something. I work so hard that I don't have time for lunch, so I'm gonna go and grab the KFC and stuff it in my face because I need something, and then I feel terrible the rest of the afternoon.
Yeah.
Instead of making time for yourself if you're going to take a lunch break. We've focused on that in the past 3 months at my office too, where I found that they were booking me like as much as they could and pushing it, and then the thing runs over, and then the next person after lunch shows up early, and then you've got 5 minutes, and your assistant doesn't get a break, and so they're upset, and you don't get a break, so you're upset. And focusing on that, you need a break to just step back, and even if you don't eat, but just to chill for a sec and just bring your thoughts back to finish off the day.
Yeah, we had the same thing. So when we bought our practice, it was a practice that never took a lunch break.
Yeah.
And so some of the staff was there, one of the doctors was there, so we just inherited that. And we did that for, 5 or more years before we finally said, no,
This doesn't
we
work
need
for
a lunch
us.
break.
Yeah.
And what it took was actually losing some of the staff that was used to that, because they liked it and they wanted to get out early and not have a lunch break, and I'd rather get paid. And then there's a bunch of legal aspects of that too.
Right.
With
You have to give people
you
breaks.
have to give people lunch breaks. They don't have to eat,
Right.
but they have to have their break. And so we had to get very almost militant about breaks from a legal standpoint as well. Yeah. Any other tips on reducing stress or talking to patients or anything like that?
I think, finding a group that you can talk to is what I said already. Having, I think Dad said this too, about having good specialists that you trust and that know you. It's not just a name on a piece of paper. You actually know the person.
Right.
And you spend time with them outside of dentistry if you can.
You know their kids' names, and you know their husband or wife.
Those kind of things, because then they know you, and if something happens, you don't feel bad sending them something like when a root canal doesn't get into a calcified canal and you can't get through it for some reason. You don't have that shame of, oh, I can't send this to them because I'm just unloading my bad stuff on them or something like that. I think that's important.
I can't remember if Dad was the one that said this, but I was talking to someone recently and they said I had something happen. I sent them over to a specialist that I know really well, and the patient came back, thank you so much for sending me to him or her. They just couldn't stop talking about you. They said how great of a dentist you are, and how hard of a tooth that was, and that is really cool.
Yeah, when you know somebody has your back.
Yeah.
Because things aren't always going to go as expected.
And it's not always about business. You
Right.
know? I think that there are specialists that are just out there, they send you this or that just so that you send them the patient.
Send you something back, yeah.
But there's more to that. Of course, we want to support each other. We want to make money. They want to make money. But there's more to the specialist relationship than that. Yeah.
The people that I refer to are people that I truly enjoy and trust, that takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time to find those people.
That's
If
true.
you're just starting or you're new in an area and you don't know, you kind of have to work through that.
Yeah. Okay, I think you were going to say something, but I cut you off. Talking to patients or reducing stress? If not, that's okay.
I think I did it. If I did, I forgot.
Okay. Any other tips for young dentists specifically? Most of the stuff you gave was for young dentists, but anything specifically, because there's a lot of young dentists that follow this.
Getting as much education as you can outside of dental school, because they can't give you everything there.
Mm-hmm.
Finding the right people to surround yourself with. Even
is
like
this in dentistry or in general?
Both in general, but also I was thinking more in dentistry. Having the right kind of reps, from your supplier. There's good and bad reps, but you may not even know that, and you just inherit a rep that comes there. Feel like I've been really lucky to have a couple of really good reps that I've had. I lost one because he went into another line of business, and I was really sad. I was desperate. I'm like, what is going on? Like, what am I gonna do without you? And I still talk to him all the time as my friend, and I was lucky a little bit after that to get another fantastic rep that cares about me as a person and cares about my practice. Mm-hmm. And I know that because of how they treat me and the things that they do with me, and when they come and see me and talk to me, and I can tell the difference. I feel like I am able to read that and tell the difference. They're looking for ways to save me money and save me time and help my practice grow and help my patients, and that makes a big difference for me, is feeling like I'm surrounded by people who really care and aren't just there to use me for their own gain.
Right. Okay, one of the last questions. Would you want your kids to go into dentistry?
If my kids wanted to go into dentistry, I would not discourage it. Mm-hmm. No, I don't think I would discourage it. I would, I think, try to, this may sound bad, Dad or Mom is watching, do a better job of educating them as to why Mom and Dad maybe said don't go into dentistry.
See, I don't remember them telling me that. Dad said he said that, but I don't think he said that to me. Maybe he said that to you.
They said it to me for sure. I don't know what they told you. They also sent you to a fancy school, so that's good too.
A fancy school? That I paid for?
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. They love you more than me.
They sent me to a fancy undergrad.
Yes.
That they paid for.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. I would allow my kids to. I would allow my kids to go into dentistry if that's what they really wanted to do. I wouldn't ever feel like I wanted to force them into dentistry.
Yeah.
That's not something that I would push. My oldest is just going into college now, and I haven't said a word to him about being a dentist because he hasn't ever expressed any interest in it.
Yeah.
If he does at some point, we can talk about it, but I'm not going to bring it up if he doesn't want to do it.
Because it's a very familial profession.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know another profession that is as familial as dentistry. I mean, I would probably say 70% of people in my dental school class had someone, whether it was direct relative or uncle or grandfather or something.
Yeah.
That was a dentist.
Yeah, there's a lot of people do.
And most of them, when I talked to them, didn't say like my parents told me to be a dentist. There were a few, but most of them did not, and so I wonder why that happens. Because I didn't want to be a dentist growing up,
Yeah, I mean, I think you see all of the good as a child of a dentist. Mm-hmm. I think you don't. Yeah. If your parents are doing a good job, you don't realize the stresses and the difficult and the challenging times. I think it is so, and it's an appealing lifestyle of if you want to run your own business and you want to work with your hands and you also have a inclination towards the sciences. You feel like you want to help or care for people. It's a good business to go into. In that way.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of dentists that are poor. You know, there's not a lot of dentists that are struggling financially, and I'm talking about like, you know, don't have a place to live,
Right.
or, you know. So there's that aspect of it that would make me think like, okay, I would want my son to be financially stable. Not extreme in each way, but financially stable. But then I think about it recently, and like, if you take out everything out of it and you just said, there's a profession that has one of the highest suicide and stress rates, would you want your kid to go into that? I would say no. Just based off of that. And so it's hard because it brings into this whole like golden handcuffs thing.
Yeah.
You know? And
Yeah,
I don't know what I would say.
the hard part with, you know, I only know dentistry, so
Right.
I never did anything else. So, but I
The
think
grass can always be greener, right?
right. Yeah. I always see my friends who went into careers at a younger age and then got started and had a home sooner than me, and this guy didn't have as much student debt.
Right.
And I would look at them and say, "Oh man, why did I do this to myself?" Well, really, I did it to myself because it's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I thought I could do it well and provide for my family, and you know, be serve in a community and be a part of a community. But yeah, I wouldn't shy away. But what I was going to say was that there's positives and negatives to everything, every occupation, and if you don't, like I said, if we don't talk to, you know, restaurateurs,
Right.
then we don't know their stresses.
True.
So if they came and talked to us, they
Well,
may
we
have
hear
some,
it from our
that's
brother.
true. They may have some similar stresses, but there will be
Yeah.
those things that are different too, right? So every occupation will have its positives and negatives, and that's something I think that's important to teach your kids, no matter what they go into. You think, oh, I'm going to do this because it's going to be fantastic,
Yeah.
and there will be fantastic about that, but there will also be things that you may
Life goes like this.
you may hate, and you
Yeah.
may think, why am I doing this? And I want to do something different. There's
Yeah.
weeks when I feel like that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Any final words? Thoughts?
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Proud of you for talking about this with people. It's not
Thank you.
easy. You know, I'm just being able to do this now as a 45-year-old. You know, it is something that I wish I could have learned sooner in my life, to be able to talk about who I am and what I feel and what I'm thinking, and not feel like I'm going to be judged or shamed or embarrassed because of it.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest regrets that I have. I'm grateful that I've learned how to do it now,
Right.
but I wish how I could go back and change some of those things. I can see now how it would have changed so many aspects of my life, professionally, family-wise, you know, religious experiences. It would have changed my whole life, and it will change my whole life from here forward. But there's always going to be that regret of, man, I wish I would have been able to do that sooner.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think society doesn't make that easy.
No.
Because there is a stigma
Right.
about mental health problems or feeling judged, or I mean, especially now with the internet. I mean, you can't do anything wrong. Everybody makes mistakes, but
Right.
everything is recorded now.
Yep.
So like, it is a hard thing, and some of those stories I've been reading about with people that are on their deathbed, a lot of what they say is like, be your own person, be honest with people, let them know who you are, let them know your strengths, let them know your weaknesses, admit your failures early, because you're much more likely to learn from that.
Because in the end, the people that you want to have around you will still respect you and love you. They'll probably respect you and love you more for expressing your
Right.
humanity than trying to be this robot
Yeah.
that is creating this ideal life of, I'm perfect, I don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
That's not real. People want real in their life.
Yeah, and I went through that with my speaking career, is when I got out, because I was speaking so young. It was like, I'm trying to prove how good I am.
Trying to show that you could fit in with the group that had been there before.
Right, that had been practicing for 20, 30 years or whatever. And then when I really started being real, showing my failures, talking about this kind of stuff,
That's when
all
people
of a
start to listen.
sudden, everyone was listening, and everybody was respected me more.
Yeah.
And they didn't care what my what my clinical stuff was, or if I looked different or if I acted different, but they start to respect you more. And I think that's a really good kind of thing to end on, is admit your faults early, be honest with yourself, be honest with the people around you, and ultimately it will lead to better, closer relationships, which is one of the things that allows you to live the longest in one of the longest studies ever done by Harvard.
And the happiest.
And the happiest, that's right. Yeah.
You can live long and miserable, and that's no fun.
No. Long and miserable with like a front up, right?
Right.
Trying to prove to everybody
figure,
that you're somebody that you're not.
You're happy.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Kyle.
Love you. And I hope this was helpful to you guys. Please comment, share this with somebody that may need to see this. If anybody is struggling and needs somebody to talk to, please message me. I've been lucky enough to have a lot of people reach out to me and share their experiences. Some of them will be coming on my lives too. I've got a bunch of people lined up for the weeks coming, and I'm trying to work on getting this topic out there so that people have a reason to talk about it and not feel like they're gonna be judged, and they can feel normal. Like, because that was the thing with me when I was going through it. It was that I'm the only one going through this. Everyone else on Instagram and that I see is rich and successful and doesn't have patients that don't like them and doesn't give back money and doesn't have staff that quit or doesn't have people threaten to sue them. And then when I started talking with everybody, I realized I was actually more normal because I went through that stuff.
Right.
You know, the people that are out there, the people that don't go through this, and if you haven't gone through it, what some of my older colleagues have told me is you just haven't been through it yet.
Right, it's coming. You will.
Yeah. You haven't been. You're here. You'll come back here, but you'll come back up, and that's where I was. I was where I thought I was at the top. Then I came all the way down to rock bottom. And why I'm talking about it now is because I'm on my way up again, and I see the light of the tunnel. I know what rock bottom feels like, and you may be there, and I hope that this helped you. So have a nice weekend. Remember, relationships are number one, and enjoy your summer.
Bye-bye.
See you next time. Bye.